Does Psalm 96 tell the story of 1996? Here at Prophecy in the News, we are convinced that it does. In our book, Hidden Prophecies in the Psalms, which we published back first in 1986 and have been watching it ever since, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. Psalm 96 was sung by David on the day they brought the Ark of the Covenant up to Jerusalem. And that was 3,000 years ago this year. That is beginning in 1996. This year on September 4th, 1995, Israel began celebrating that 3,000th anniversary of Psalm 96. Gary Stearman is here to discuss with me this incredible psalm.
Well, it's incredible, all right. And since the Jewish New Year begins in September, we are right at the beginning of the Jewish year, 5756, corresponding to 1996 in the Gentile calendar, which of course begins 3 months from now. So we are poised on a prophetic incident that could be of major significance.
Yes, Gary, we're right on the threshold of Psalm 96.
Yes.
And we are just coming out of Psalm 95. Mm-hmm. Psalm 95, of course, has that fascinating statement in it, "Today if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts." And when that was first spoken back at Kadesh Barnea, when Joshua and Caleb said, "We can go into the land, even though there are giants in the land," and the people's hearts melted because they looked like grasshoppers in their sight. And the people took up stones to stone Joshua and Caleb. And this year, the people are taking up stones and stoning the policemen and stoning the politicians in Israel. It's as if they're heeding that psalm.
And you know, you've got an article there from the Dallas Morning News that talks about the uproar in Jerusalem. We've been mentioning this for quite some time. I think it's reached a fever pitch right now. Read a couple of excerpts from that article.
Well, you know, according to this article, Israel's peace talks take toll on respect for the government. Never was this more clear than when Israeli demonstrators demanding an end to peace talks with PLO attacked Jerusalem police chief Aria Amit outside Parliament. They kicked and shoved him, forcing him to retreat to his police car. The mob then set upon the car, throwing rocks at him.
Yeah, and it says the mob, but actually these mobs are ordinary Israeli citizens. It's not an organized effort. There's widespread dissatisfaction with the Israeli army, which up until now has had great respect among the people since 1967.
According to Mark Heller of Tel Aviv University's Strategic Studies Center, he said that Israelis living in the West Bank are feeling more and more desperate. He said that climate drives them to more extreme actions. We're moving to some kind of climax.
Yeah.
What kind of climax are they moving toward? Does Psalm 96 have something to do with it?
Oh, and listen, here's another factor that we should definitely consider. From the Associated Press, Jerusalem, Israel began celebrating the 3,000th anniversary of King David's conquest of Jerusalem on Monday. Now, of course, that was Monday in our calendar, September 9th. September 4th, I beg your pardon. And amid accusations that the festivals or festivities are an attempt to deny Palestinian claims to the city. This is going to be a 17-month commemoration, and here's an interesting side note, J.R. It's being boycotted by the European Union and, of course, by Palestinian leaders. They don't want to acknowledge this 3,000th anniversary. I wonder why.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I want you to listen to an article here in the Jewish press about the highlights for Jerusalem 3000. Again, it says on September 4th, Monday night, hundreds of thousands of Israelis joined by visitors from around the world will watch one of the most sophisticated laser and fireworks displays ever mounted to light up the skies over Jerusalem. They lit fireworks over Jerusalem, Gary.
How about
They really did. And then, listen to this. It was in the year 1094 BC that David, Israel's second king, transformed the hilltop hamlet of Jebus into his capital, proclaiming it the permanent home of the Ark of the Covenant. And he goes on to say, thus, by bringing the children of Israel's Ark of the Covenant to rest permanently in Jerusalem, David effectively completed the cycle started by Abraham. The Ark of the Covenant is connected with 1996 and this 3,000th anniversary. What they're really celebrating, folks, is the 3,000th anniversary of the singing of Psalm 96, which was sung in the Chronicles by David and the people who brought the Ark of the Covenant up 3,000 years ago this coming year.
Let me just read a couple of verses from the historical chronicle that tells about this event. This is in 1 Chronicles chapter 16. So they brought the ark of God. This is the first verse. So they brought the ark of God and set it in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrifices and peace offerings before God. And when David had made an end of the offering, the burnt offerings, the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord, and he dealt to every one of Israel, both man and woman, to every one a loaf of bread and a good piece of flesh and a flagon of wine. This was a first-class celebration. Now, here's what I wanted to get to. When you come to the 7th verse, J.R., it says, "Then on that day, David delivered first this psalm to thank the Lord into the hand of Asaph and his brethren." And what continues then are excerpts from two psalms, Psalm 105 and Psalm 96. And Psalm 96 is virtually identical as presented in 1 Chronicles 16 to the way it's presented in the collection of the Psalms as Psalm 96.
Which means 3,000 years ago this coming year, David brought the Ark of the Covenant up to Jerusalem, made Jerusalem his capital and the permanent home of the Ark of the Covenant. And when they placed the Ark of the Covenant in the tabernacle of David, they sang Psalm 96. 3,000 years later, to the very year, Psalm 96 is nestled in the Psalms, the 19th book of the Old Testament, and the 96th division of that psalm. To me, that is an absolute confirmation that the Psalms are prophecies and that they are being fulfilled in each year of this century, in the 1900s, and each psalm numbered according to the year it is fulfilled.
Now, we're going to have to take a little break here in just a moment. Before we do, J.R., let's look at verse 8 of Psalm 96 and make a comment about that, because this is exciting. Verse 8 of Psalm 96 says, "Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts." What could that offering be that we're talking about here?
Not knowing the future, we can only speculate at this point. But a few months ago, we interviewed Gershon Solomon, who feels called of God to rebuild a Jewish temple. They have prepared all of the implements for temple worship, the garments for the priesthood. They are preparing soon to move temple worship to the mountain. That's incredible. Is it possible that the Ark of the Covenant will come out of its hiding place this coming year, sometime in the next 17 months, and will be brought into the heart of Jerusalem? That's a powerful question.
Well, you know, David wrote this psalm, and in verse 29 of 1 Chronicles 16, we have the same verse. Very slightly different. It says, "Give," not bring, "give unto the Lord the glory due his name. Bring an offering and come before him. Worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness." This offering obviously was the ark that came in and was placed before the Lord.
This term, the beauties of holiness,
Gary,
is in Psalm 110, same as it is there, and it refers to the Kof, the 19th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, whose numerical value is 100. This has got to be more than just throw in a phrase.
Oh, yes.
This is to be by divine appointment here.
An appointment is being kept. It has to do with the Ark of the Covenant. And by the way, the Ark of the Covenant, the significant word in there is covenant.
Yes.
God has not forgotten his covenant.
Yes. 10 years ago, in 1986, we published the book, Hidden Prophecies in the Psalms. Here it is, 10 years later, 1996 is coming up, and we're looking at Psalm 96. Does Psalm 96 tell the story of 1996? We're convinced that it does. We do not know the future. But this psalm is so incredible. The Jewish people are celebrating the 3,000th anniversary of Psalm 96. How else can I put it, Gary?
Well, we have here a kind of a resounding festive quality that opens Psalm 96. Oh, sing unto the Lord a new song. Sing unto the Lord all the earth. And the commentators who have written commentaries on the Psalms according to their presentation in the Masoretic text, the Jews say this concerning the new song. The Midrash points out that throughout Scripture the word for song is shirah, which is the feminine form. It has that ah ending on the end of it. But the new song of the future is in the masculine form, shir. And the Midrash explains that in this world of adversity and struggle, every brief period of triumph and every song is succeeded by a new tragedy. Since this pattern resembles the female cycle of pregnancy and childbirth, the song takes on a feminine form, Shirah Hadashah, the new song. However, the song of the future is in the masculine form, shir, because it describes the messianic song of ultimate triumph, after which no further misfortunes will be born. And so we have shir hadash, and that's what we have in Psalm 96 here. Oh, sing unto the Lord a shir hadash, the new song in the masculine form, meaning Messiah has arrived and taken charge. J.R., this is amazing to me. It includes not only the figure of the Messiah, but also the woman in travail, which is a strong prophetic figure, you know.
So what we have up until Psalm 96 are birth pangs of travail.
Exactly.
And this implies the birth of the baby.
The birth of the baby.
Something new and fresh is going to come. This is a decisive year for Israel.
Now, Jesus, you know, prophesying of Israel in the latter days, likened Israel's difficulties to birth pangs, and he instructed us to watch very carefully these birth pangs.
Some years ago, I talked to a Jewish rabbi and asked him to write down the names of the years, which are here in his own handwriting. And he began with 1986, 87, and concluded with 1995, 96, this coming year, on this little sheet of paper. And as he wrote them down, I asked him to put down what the various years meant. For example, 1988, 89, he wrote down a Shemitah. Well, that was 7 years ago, according to this coming year, 1996. Now, for 1989-90, you shall sleep. 1990-91, you shall hate. That was the year of the big war against the hate-monger Saddam Hussein in Iraq.
Yes, indeed.
This past year was a year of excellence, according to the meaning of the word Shana. And then 1995-96, the year we are moving into now with the September 25th Rosh Hashanah, Jewish New Year.
Yes.
Means all of you shall change. And it's inclusive. It's not singular now. It's all of you.
Yeah. We should point out quickly that Hebrew letters used to spell words are also used as numerals. And therefore, a number, like the number of a year, can be a word, like Shana. Last year was excellence. 1996, or 5756, is written in the Hebrew Tav, Shin, Nun, Vav, which would be Tashanu, all of you shall change. Now that's fascinating to me.
Yes, and I asked him, what do you mean, all of you shall change? In what regard? He said, well, it means like all of our customs will change. Do you realize for 2,000 years, they have had a set of customs that have avoided sacrifices and temple worship.
Yes.
Is it possible they will change their customs and go back to some kind of temple worship this coming year? Is this what 1996 is all about? Psalm 96 points to the restoration of the Ark of the Covenant in Jerusalem. That's what Psalm 96 tells us.
Now, in the remaining moments that we have, there's something very exciting about Psalm 96. The concluding verse of this psalm is amazing. And the reason is twofold. Number one, it begins in the middle of a sentence. It's very rare for a Bible verse just to begin flatly in the middle of a sentence. It begins this way, Psalm 96:13. It begins, before the Lord. which ends the sentence that starts the preceding verse. It says, before the Lord, for he cometh to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness, and the people with his truth. And J.R., the phrase in Hebrew, before the Lord, is a very, very special phrase. It means before the face of, or in the very physical presence of, a person. In this case, the Lord. Now, to me, that's fascinating that phrase has been isolated. It's been broken apart from a sentence and set out there so we'll notice it.
Incredible, Gary. Does this mean the presence of the Lord in 1996? Is it possible? I don't know when the Lord is coming, but we do have the promise of a blessed hope. We have the promise of the rapture of the church. And you know, Gary, this opening statement here in Psalm 96, verses 2 and 3 says, sing unto the Lord, bless his name, show forth his salvation. And the Hebrew term there incorporates the word Yeshua, or Jesus. And so it says here, show forth his Jesus from day to day, declare his glory among the heathen, that is the Goyim, or the Gentile nations. Folks, for 2,000 years, we have seen, and it says here, from day to day. Could that be 2 days?
Oh, it would
2,000 years of the gospel going out to the Gentiles?
Well, and to go with that, in verse 13, it says, before the Lord, for he cometh, we have two comings there.
We have his first coming 2,000 years ago, 2 days ago, or 2 millennial days, and we have his promise that he will return, and it's very possible that he will return soon. Boy, wouldn't it be great if it was sometime in the next year?
The sooner the better.
Yes. What we have here in Psalm 97 appears to be a servant lamp of the menorah. We have Psalm 96 and Psalm 98 are almost identical psalms, and they flank on either side this magnificent Psalm 97, which says, clouds and darkness around about him, and righteousness and judgment of the habitation of his throne. A fire goeth before him and burneth up his enemies round about. His lightnings enlightened the world. The earth saw and trembled. The hills melted like wax. All the people see his glory. And thou art high above all the earth, exalted far above all gods. Psalm 97 could very well be a prophecy of some cataclysmic event that might happen in 1997.
J.R., there's something very interesting about Jerusalem 3000, the 3000th anniversary of David's bringing up the ark and placing it right there on the Temple Mount. What's fascinating is that this is being called a 17-month commemoration. Well, if it began on September 4th of this year, then that means it would run on into 1997, 17 months away. And now this is fascinating to me because this is the very period in question, starting with Psalm 95, going to Psalm 96, Psalm 97. We have great things being presented prophetically here.
It's amazing.
Great things.
Look at this article right here. This says, bright comet coming in 97. Wow.
Oh, dear.
And so far, they say this Hale Bop is the name they've dubbed it with.
Yes. After its discoverers.
Yes, after its discoverers. But you remember Revelation says there's coming a star to fall from heaven upon the waters and turn them bitter. Is it? I don't know if it's going to come anywhere near the earth, but it's touted to be possibly the brightest thing that has ever been seen by human eyes. Wow, 1997. What can we say? This is one of the most incredible psalms that are in this 150 psalm collection. And I'm convinced that something spectacular is about to occur.